Good morning guys, I'm Chris and welcome back to another episode of Rift Amps. The field coil speaker for the Gibson BR-6 amp, Josh's amp, has come back from recone. It's all been done. Brand new cone on there. New dust cap, all done properly. Absolutely fantastic job. Got a new spider in there. Probably can't see. In there. New voice coil, all wound, all back together. So he's done a really good job. So I can now get this reinstalled back into the what am I saying? Into the chassis. I need to get all these wires hooked up again, and this thing can be tested. So, how much does a recone cost? It's a question you get asked a lot. I don't mind showing you at all. So there is an extra level of complexity when it's a field coil. You've got extra things you need to be careful of, which is why you can't just use any old service. You've got to use somebody who knows what they're doing and does this all day, every day. Now, I've used all the recone services in the UK, and the only place that I've gone to that has never let me down and has always done nothing short of exceptional service is Roy, RMJ Loudspeakers. Recones.com is his website. Recone 10-inch roller field coil, including return shipping to me and including taxes, £111.59. So that's what this cost. Worth every penny. Worth every penny. Yes, you could go elsewhere. You might save, get it for 10% cheaper if you shop around, find someone else to do it. But the standard of work might not be as good, and it's definitely not worth taking that risk. It's got to be right first time. They've got to do a good job, which Roy always does. This thing is going to be fantastic. We had a bit of a conversation about what kind of wattage it needs to be with the voice coil for handling. I mean, it's only a low wattage amp, so it doesn't need to be crazy, but it's always good to have a bit more power handling in there, so as this thing ages it doesn't decrease. And yeah, this thing's great, absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to get this all wired back into the chassis, reinstalled back into the cabinet, and then we can finally hear this thing. I know it seems obvious, and I know you lot aren't stupid, but when you're not working on a project all in one go, you do some work, you put it to one side, and you have to come back to it. It's always worth taking photos, just to remind yourself exactly where all your wires and bits and pieces go and how things are configured, because, as you know, it's easy to forget, especially when you've got loads of work on at the same go. So that's what I do. Another little top tip for you, because you lot subscribe. So we're going to get this thing wired back in. So I've got all my different wires here. And I'm just going to get all these soldered in. Now, a couple of these terminals in here, jam-packed full of old solder, so I'm going to get those cleaned up with the soldering gun, get it all wired back in, and then we can get it back in the cabinet, and let's get this thing tested. Right, all back together then. Valves in. Amp has been on and running now for about 20 minutes, so it's fully warmed up. We will do a proper sound sample when Josh collects it. I'm sure we'll plug in a nice, appropriate guitar into this thing. I mean, they're not very loud anyway, but it certainly does kick out some nice sounds. And you get the idea. So yeah, good fix that. Quite happy with it. Anything else to say on it really? No, I mean it was more just about getting this thing up and running so Josh can decide what he wants to do with it after the fact. I mean, it doesn't hum, it doesn't hiss, there's no weird noises with it. It's already had most of the service work done inside anyway. So yeah, it's pretty much done. I mean, there's nothing more for me to do on this really, except the rear panel, because the rear panel, as you can see, is split. So I might talk to Josh about what he wants to do about that. It's got to be that way, isn't it? About whether he wants me to glue that on, or whether he will do that himself or leave it to the new owner. But yeah, that's about it really. Cool, good job. Right, Q&A time then. Okay, Simon Cormandy, sorry Simon, says, "Hi Chris, I seem to remember reading somewhere that those bolt-in mains plug sockets were no longer considered safe for use at full mains voltage." Well, no one considers them safe anymore at any voltage, and they have been derated to 50 volt maximum. Not sure on that. I do know that the mini bolt-in was 50 volt at 1.5 amps from the factory. Maybe that's where you've got that. It looks very similar, although it's got a smaller pin spacing. So maybe that's where you've got that from. But not that I'm aware of. But you just shouldn't use bolt-ins anyway. They are just hilariously bad. So yeah, anyway, thanks for the comment. I struggle sometimes. I really do. Because just like I did with the Headstrong, I know how awful and difficult it is when someone else rips your own amp apart, warranted or not, on the internet. And so I generally don't do it. I'll always point out things that are unsafe or things that can be done better, but I tend not to do the whole look how awful this amplifier is, look how terrible it is sort of thing. I think most of the amp techs on YouTube could do better on that front. But I am struggling with this. So this is this amplifier on my bench right now was built by a small-time UK builder who charges money for stuff like this. You tell me if you think that is acceptable. Let me know in the comments. What is it? This is a Fender clone. It's a Fender clone of the Princeton AA964, which is the non-reverb Princeton. So it's just a volume, treble bass, speed and intensity. GZ34 rectifier in this case, 2 6v6s, 2 ECC83s. Now we have incredibly strict laws here in the UK about the manufacture of mains powered appliances such as kettles, washing machines, computers, radios, amplifiers, anything that's powered by mains. We are governed by pretty strict regulations. Further to that, we also have standards that we build to and that we have to obtain, and we've got an obligation to our customers too, to say that you can't be delivering substandard or poor quality stuff. Look at this amplifier on my bench right now. Tell me if you think the builder of this amplifier, who at the moment will remain nameless, has any right to be charging for this standard of work. Why is it on my bench? Good question. So I recently pointed out to some people that the main side wiring of the amplifiers that this chap is producing wasn't up to code. So, and if anyone had one of them, could bring it to me and I would, free of charge, rewire it up to code, which is what I've done on this amp. So I've rewired the IEC socket, the fuse, so the live goes from the socket to the fuse, to the back of the fuse, from the side of the fuse to the switch, from the switch to the transformer, and the neutral is connected directly to the IEC socket. This is our disconnect device here, so we don't need a DP-DT switch or DPST. I've also added a HT fuse to the high voltage center tap and I've added a dedicated mains earth because that was done to this transformer bolt down here. So at least my customer now knows that in the event of a fault or a short or something like that, he's going to be protected to the level which UK law requires. All right, so at least we're safe now. You may be wondering, where on earth is the circuit board? Yeah, where is it? Where is the circuit board? And this is the thing that blows me away the most about this amplifier. Circuit board is on the top side. Right? Explain that one to me. It's on the top side, and all of the connections run through the chassis, through these tiny holes that he's drilled. No grommets. He hasn't deburred most of them, and he's running them through. Some of these are high voltage wires. That's incredibly stupid, incredibly dangerous. What on earth is this guy thinking? So I'm not going to name the guy because I have sent him a message, and other people have as well, to say you need to sort your stuff out because this is not acceptable. Even for the hobby builder, you need to do better. My advice to you, my lovely customers and viewers, don't hand over a penny of your money or a cent or a dollar or anything like that until you know 100% for sure that the product you're buying is built to the absolute minimum safety standards, and ideally a standard much higher than that. So whilst it's on the bench, we may as well check it out, right? At least I know it's safe to plug in now. So it's up on the test bench, 8 ohm. It's got 4, 8 and 16 ohm outputs. I'm going to stop commenting on the rest of the actual build quality, but yeah, we're plugged in 8 ohm load at the moment. Driving it with a 1 kilohertz 150 millivolt sine wave. Now let's look at the scope, shall we? What am I doing? This one. So here's our scope. Let's have a look what's going on. So treble and bass are currently on 0. Tremolo is also on 0, but I do need to defeat the tremolo because they are naturally on. So which is the tremolo foot switch? Is this one down here? So if we just short that to ground. Okay, sorry. So we're now advancing the volume control, and you see we've got some output. And it stays clean pretty much all the way up. So I don't even know if we're going to get any more out of it. 9.6 volts, call it 9.5 into 8 ohms gives us 11.3 watts, and these should be around 12 watts. So great, fine. It's very clean though, no overdrive at all. Okay. So with the volume control on maximum, let's advance the treble control and see what happens. Well, we get a bit more of a boost now. Okay, interesting. 12 volts there. 18 watts. Interesting. 12.5. 19.5 watts. Okay, but you see we're starting to square off at the top there. Sorry, at the bottom of the peaks. Can you see? Let's keep advancing it. Oh. You see it? We've got high frequency oscillation here. Let's back the treble down a bit so it's not there. So that's clean, sorry. Advance it again. Starting to get some overdrive, and then it starts to oscillate. Keep advancing the treble control. That's bad. That's really bad. We zoom you in even further. Let's have a look at it. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Oh dear. Woo! Zoom you out again. Well, I want to see that from an. So clean. Do it again. Go from clean. Starts to oscillate. Okay, so that's now treble at full. Bring up the bass, no real effect. If I turn the volume down while it's oscillating, it does clean itself up again. Okay, that's a recipe for an overheated transformer right there. Not good, not good. Somebody's paid money for this. It's only a couple of months old. Right, anyway, let's stop it killing itself. So treble and bass back on 0, volume on maximum. Let's kick the tremolo in, see what we get. So intensity, okay, she wobbles and she throbs away. She's not bad actually. We'll bring up the speed as well. Yeah, and she's thumping away. I would argue though that it could go deeper. It's got an internal bias pot. There we go. That looks nicer. Not sure about this. But there you go. Yeah, I mean, look at that oscillation. That's horrendous. So, tell me, if you paid money for an amp like this, would you be happy? Would you be unhappy? Would you say, well, I only paid X amount of money for it, so I'm prepared to forgive its shortcomings? Or would you say, no, it's completely unacceptable? This guy shouldn't be selling amps like this. He needs to do better. I know what I think. Let's leave it at that. Matt Bullock says, I like how you're excited by the prospect of dealing with the cramped point-to-point chassis rather than getting upset about what a pain it can be. Very cool amp. Talking about the Gretsch here. If you've ever worked on old radios, that Gretsch is nothing. You know, I used to do quite a bit of valve radio repair, restoration. Even did a couple of old TVs as well. And if you work on those things, that Gretsch is nothing. Not an issue whatsoever. So, yeah, it's got some difficult caps to access, but you take your time, do it properly, don't rush it, and it won't be an issue. So, when I get round to doing those, I'll try and remember to film it. See where we are at the time. Don't worry, it's lead-free. And yeah, I'll show you how you can do it. I mean, it's not easy, it is fiddly, but it's not difficult, it just takes time. A lot of people, that's a good tangent, actually. A lot of people seem to associate the time it takes to do a job with its technical difficulty, which isn't always the case. Things can take a long time and be very simple. Things can be very tricky to do, but not take very long. It's not always one or the other. So there you go. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into that thing. There will be an update on the Gretsch in a separate video later on this week, because I need to get one more video out before the end of the month. So yeah, look forward to that. Not a guitar amplifier, amazingly, but this is, I don't even know what I'm showing you. I do know, because I think I find it interesting. So we've got a tumble dryer at home, like most people do, and we bought it brand new, and probably about 18 months ago, the motor burned out and died. So an engineer came and replaced it under warranty or guarantee. And at the same time, he fitted a new belt and a new tensioner, which is what I've got in front of me. And all's been good. And just before I had my little break, the drum stopped turning in the tumble dryer. The unit's now out of warranty. So it's up to me to fix it. So I pulled it apart and had a look, and sure enough, the belt was completely shredded. And a lot of it was wrapped around the motor spindle. So it was all in pieces, and that's what you've got here. So you can see it's a pretty knackered multi-rib belt. And these are actually quite stretchy, but it's it's not in great condition. Now, I don't know about you, but tumble dryer belts should last a bit longer than 18 months, you would have thought, right? So what causes belt failure? Well, either it's been rubbing on something, or it's been rubbing on something, right? Yeah, it can't really be anything else in a tumble dryer. And this is the tensioner pulley. And this sits on the side of the motor, so the spindle below it. Belt wraps around the spindle, around the tensioner, and then up around the drum. And you can see there's quite a bit of scoring and marks on this tensioner wheel. So it's definitely been, the belt's definitely been running off centre. It hasn't been running in the middle. You can see it's definitely been running off to one side. So, you know, it should be there. The belt should be slightly wider than this, but it's obviously been stripped. But yeah, rather than there, it's been running there up against this bit here. Now, why has it been doing that? Because, you know, it should be all right. Now, first thing you do whenever you check any sort of bearing or tensioner is give it a good old spin and listen to this. I mean, it still spins for days, look, but it is noisy. It is noisy. And there is actually quite a bit of play in that bearing. So the bearing's failed. So, but why? I mean, they're not really under that much stress. Yes, it's a high dust environment, as you can see, but it's not, you know, like a pulley that, or a tensioner that's in a car, for example. It's low RPM. It's, yeah, it shouldn't really fail. So why has it failed? And I was just looking at it, and I'll put a picture on the screen now of how the system looks so you can understand. But the idiot engineer who came out and did all the warranty work, he fitted the bolt that goes in this hole back in, but not in this one. And so in fact, the tensioner, as it's sitting, was kinked up, kind of like that, but then also slightly off kilter, which is why it's all wandered off and has destroyed another belt, which I'm really annoyed about. Okay, fine, not a problem. So a new belt and a new tensioner pulley from online, about 30 quid. Not a problem, happy to spend that. Cheaper than buying a new tumble dryer. However, the bolts that go in there, obviously I'm missing one. I don't know where it is. It's not in the bottom of the unit. He's obviously not installed it and it's gone somewhere. They want 15 quid. 15 quid for a tiny, tiny bolt. Now, I've measured the one that's in there. It's an odd. It's M5 by 1, so 1mm pitch. But the length is really odd. And because it bolts into the side of the motor, you've got to get it exactly right. So I went up the hardware store and went through the thing, and none of them have got anything that's correctly length. Yes, I could probably cut something down, but you know, the bolt is cheaper than the tensioner itself, and that annoys me. That annoys me. Anyway, so I'm in a bit of a grump about that. But what I thought I'd do is pull off, if I can, the nut, and we can inspect the bearing together, because clearly lots of dust gets in there anyway. See, nylock nut. There you go. So that's the spindle. All looks to be okay. Could probably reuse that. No reason why you couldn't, unless it is bent itself. But I think the play was in the bearing itself. So which way out do you think that's going to punch? Not that way. I was hoping that I could get the bearing apart, completely disassemble it, re-clean it, re-grease the inside of it with proper bearing grease, and that might be savable, but probably not. Boring. Right, okay. You can go in the bin. What I am going to have to do, however, now is keep one of these in stock at home, so if it ever goes down, I haven't got to wait a couple of days for delivery. How boring is that? Is that a really grown-up, middle-aged thing to do? Keeping spare belts and tensioners for your tumble dryer in stock. Oh, God, I am getting old. Audio message commenting on the Christmas special update says, epic series. Well, thank you very much. I recently serviced an almost mint example just like this. And you're right, they are fantastic for bass, but brutal for guitar. Yeah, they really are. But there you go. As for the proposed black panel 100 watt, have you considered building the AB165 AA864 hybrid? No, because what that hybrid is when you've got an AB165, that's got what you do then is you build in the earlier phase inverter and normal channel from the AA864 into that. But of course, I don't need to do that because I'm building an AA864 from scratch. And it's the guitar channel and the bass channel of the AA864 that I want, so I don't need to do the hybrid. Being that it's 100 watt, it's going to have a different power section, different mains filtering, different B plus filtering, and different other bits and pieces like that. So it's not going to be, it can't be an exact AA864 because it's not an AA864 exactly. It's a 100 watt version. So you've got all those other bits that you have to take note of and account for and all those things. But yeah, I'm really excited about building that. The only difficult thing is I need to work out how to add a mid control to the bass channel, because if you look at the bass channel on the AA864, it's got a really interesting tone stack, and so I just need to reconfigure that slightly because there's going to be space on the chassis for a mid control, and I would like to have one. So yeah, it's just going to be working out the best way of doing that, and I might have to try a few options. It's classic circuit experimentation, working out what works, what doesn't. There's various ways you can go about it. Might not get it right first time, might absolutely nail it. You never know, but that's the fun of it. But yeah, that's the only thing, is that both channels will be getting mid controls as well. On the normal channel, it's easy to do, but on the bass channel, the way it's configured, I need to do some simulations and stuff in Circuit Lab and whatnot to see. The problem is there's always the best way on paper, and then there's the thing that sounds the best, and they don't always go hand in hand. So yeah, experimentation is fun. I do like it. But yeah, really looking forward to cracking on with that one. Weather update: it's cold, dry, blue skies. But here's the best thing: it's 5:30. I've just finished work, and it's still light. And the sun is 3 minutes away from going down. So, but we're still daylight. Look, not bad. I'll stop spinning so you don't get on you don't get dizzy. But yeah, summer is definitely on its way. It's great when you finish work and it's not dark. Speaking of the Gretsch, or going back to it, there was a lot of comments and discussion in the comment section of the video of the Gibson speakers and whether or not I should just attempt to repair them, or whether reconing is a good idea or not. Now, I should give you my normal advice and what I normally tell people to do, and then you can understand why I've made the decision or the recommendation that I have, and why the customers decided to go for a recone. So usually with an old amp like that, if the original speakers are in good condition and you want to play the amp regularly, I always say take the speakers out, put them safe in a box somewhere, fit some good sounding modern equivalents, play the amp as much as you want, and then you're protecting the original speakers. And should you then pop one of the new speakers, it doesn't matter, you can just buy another replacement, but you're maintaining the originality of those original speakers, providing they're already in good condition. So that's what I always say to people. And then if you come to sell the amp, you can put the originals back in, or just give them with the amp to the next person, and then they can decide what they want to do. But there's no devaluing going on there at all. However, with older speakers, it's not just the cone that you've got to worry about. It is the voice coil, which most likely will be paper. 50s and 60s speakers, paper voice coils. They, just like the cone, they do deteriorate over time. They take on moisture. And they, especially with old Jensens, we generally say that. So those P12Ps were 16 watts each. That's their power handling. But over time, you have to assume that power handling drops, so they're easier to burn out and pop. which we don't want to do. So we don't know the condition of the voice coils in those speakers. So combined, they've got 32 watts of power handling. The Gretsch is a 35 watt amp, and that will be its clean rating. It will do more than that at high power. So if we repair those speakers, there's a high chance you're going to pop them anyway by using them in the amp. So what do? Do you take them out, leave them as they are, stick them in a box in their knackered condition, fit modern speakers? Yes, that's one option. You can absolutely do that. But the customer is keen to reuse the original speakers, and he's happy to get them reconed with a couple of provisos, which if I bring up my email, I can read to you exactly what he said. He said, with the speakers, when I said to him they're going to need, if you want to reuse the originals, they're going to need reconing. He said, with the speakers, if they use smooth cones like the original, and you trust the quality of the materials and the skill of the reconing process, and you've used that company before, then please proceed. If you could break the speakers in, that would be amazing. Well, I can give you ticks on all fronts there. So, the guy I use, which, as you know from this video, is Roy at recones.com. He has new old stock Jensen smooth cones up there. So he's got those available, ready to go. There won't be the cones with the ribs in. So he's got the old cones that he can use. Do I trust the quality of the materials? Yes, absolutely. I've used him before. He's fantastic. The skill of the reconing process? Absolutely. We've covered that before. And you've used that company before. Yeah, well, obviously, yeah, we tick that box. If I could break the speakers in, that would be amazing. I can do that, no problem. So we can get original cones for them in good condition. We can the voice coils will be, we won't use a paper voice coil, it will be a modern material, so the power handling will increase on the speakers, because even at 16 watts each, it's not enough for the amp. We do want to bump that up slightly. It's not going to change the tone or the sound or the way those speakers play, which is a good thing, other than they'll sound like new speakers rather than really old knackered ones. If you could break the speakers in, we can do that. So there you go. That's what the customer wants to do, and I can offer that level of service. It's the best solution for those speakers. You know, doing the old coffee filter trick and PVA glue to try and repair those cones. I mean, that's the sort of stuff you do on old radios when cones aren't available, and you're not putting a lot of power through them. But this is a guitar amp; they've got to be up to spec. So. Yeah, that's the. I hope that all makes sense. I've waffled on for a lot on that answer. So we are going to get those speakers reconed, or that's the plan. I'm going to send them up to Roy. He's going to do a full assessment on them, and then come back to me and say, yes, we can proceed, or no, I found another issue that we need to consider first. So that's where we're going to go with it. Just finishing up the chassis prep on this Americana LP build. Now, I haven't actually built an Americana LP for what feels like forever, but it hasn't really been that long. But when I've been in loads of other PR builds, Ainsleys, the SIG builds, all the other bits and pieces, it's sometimes nice to get into something that you haven't done in a while. And I've seen this on the build list for a while now, and I've just been really excited to get stuck in. So I've been making some progress on the chassis, obviously mark it all out, drilling all my holes and bits and pieces, and I'm just about to punch the IEC socket over here. Because lots of you like to ask me how I do my IEC holes and how the system works and all that kind of stuff. And I have shown it on the channel before, but it is interesting. And so it's something that I thought today I can at least show you so you get an idea of what's going on. So it uses essentially this tool here, which is a cutter that goes through the chassis, and as you crank on it with a big old spanner, it cuts the material. So that's what I'm going to show you now, and hopefully this thing's going to stay in focus as we do it. So you've got the main shaft here, which goes on the outside. First of all, you have to drill a 16mm hole, and it goes through this receptacle here, like so. And on the inside, you have the actual cutting face, and a securing nut as well. So that's what it looks like. Hopefully you can see it hasn't lost focus, that sort of thing. And so I just need to double check the orientation because it is different on these. So where is my... So we get a new IEC socket out of the bag, and I just need to confirm that I'm cutting it that away. So it needs to orientate itself that way. That's correct. Get the idea? So the next step is to just kind of make sure it's sitting square, and you can just wind the nut in just to get this thing to start lightly grabbing the metal. And then I get a straight edge. In this case I use a right angle block like that, and I just use that, I'm trying to do this while you can still see, just to square it up on the inside, square the cutting tool up so I know the hole that it's going to cut is square relative to the chassis, and then get it exactly where it needs to be. Helped if it was square. You only get one go at this. That's looking good. And then you just keep snugging it up until it's ready to go. So I'm now happy that that's square and that's where it needs to be. And this is a big 24mm spanner. And it's as simple as that. And there's my hole. And inside the cutter, what will be remaining is one of those that you then need to remove. But that's how you do it. So now I can get my socket, which has disappeared. It's on the floor. I can place that into the hole like that. And then mark on, once I've got it sitting square, the mounting holes. So I can go and drill those out as well. It's that simple, it's that easy. Well, that's it then, guys. Thank you very much for watching once again. As always, please give this video a thumbs up, or your comments and questions down below. Subscribe, hit the notification bell if you haven't already. If you're feeling super generous, why not join the channel like these guys have? And I will catch you all at the next one. Well, it's not a bad way to spend your birthday, is it? Look at it. Absolutely fantastic. Big fan. And I haven't thought about a guitar amplifier all weekend. So, you know, always good to switch off. Having a great time. I mean, look at the sky. Look at the sea. Absolutely amazing. This dog is having the absolute best time. The rarely spotted Mrs. Rift. I may have gone a little bit wet, a little bit soaked. Just taking my boot off. Right, just do the other one. Note to self, wear Wellingtons next time. Well, that wasn't too bad. Anyway, thanks for watching.